Welcome to the post-game lobby where I'm joined by Martin Official and Max Floor and Hussein Moosvi of Misfits Gaming. Now, guys, before we move on to anything else, I want to take a chance to recap a little bit of that last series. Deficio, you had the pleasure of casting that last game, so let's start with you. What went wrong for Splyce there?
I think in the draft in game 2, they ended up having way too much scaling and actually no way of dealing with Nidalee in the early game because they had like Azir, Sejuani, and Nidalee and LeBlanc, I should add in the early game with Azir and Sejuani. And that actually cost them quite a lot because then when their side lanes were going even, well, Nidalee would show up or something and then suddenly would be in favor of Unicorns of Love. And then I got surprised. I was like, it's 1-1 in kills at 30 minutes in a Unicorns of Love game. I didn't actually know what was going on because they actually played pretty well in terms of macro in this game here. So that surprised me quite a lot.
Would you have expected the Nidalee to come out, Max, or as a jungler, were you like, yes, of course, the Nidalee pick here. This is the tactical choice. What are your thoughts on this last pick Nidalee just to mix things up in the draft for Unicorns of Love?
I wouldn't have expected it if I was Splyce. However, it was a pretty smart pick. It's like the most punishing jungler you can pick against the tank if you have priority mid and if you want to kind of snowball early game, which is, I guess, what they did because of how stomped Azir was getting in lane.
Yeah, definitely the case. Is this a strategy, Hussein, for you that you would have banked on, picking something like a Nidalee LeBlanc early game to shut down a scaling composition, or is this a pretty high risk strategy? Because to me, we look at a Nidalee in the early game, I saw no kills, and I was very concerned that the scaling of Splyce would just kind of overwhelm.
I personally don't like picking such high-risk comps. I think if they went with like a split push or top, it'd be easier. But with Maokai and Nidalee, you're supposed to get ahead early game, but the onus is on you to really snowball that as well. And if you make any mistakes against a comp like what Splyce had, then it very easily snowballs against you, and then you don't really have too many options. So personally, I don't like picking comps like that, but that doesn't mean they're bad if you can execute on them, and Unicorns really did.
Big question. Is this the best Unicorns of Love macro game you guys have ever seen?
Probably, yeah.
That's a yes from you?
It was pretty clean, yeah.
All right. So Unicorns of Love at the end of the regular season in Summer Split showing a new style.
Best macro game they've ever seen from Unicorns of Love.
From Unicorns of Love. Worth adding to the quote.
But that brings us to our next point with the results from Week 9. All our 6 playoff teams have been decided. However, there is still a lot to play for in the Summer Split. Looks like it's shaping up pretty well. 1, 2, 3, no one 100% locked in quite yet. Fnatic 1 win away from locking first.
I have really bad eyes, Dracos. Is Misfits first or second in that group? Or
no, Misfits is third, which brings us to my favorite topic of discussion.
What happened?
What, graphic bugs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
graphic,
right. The 6-6 should be higher than the 8-3. You're right. My math was totally wrong. This is a discussion we've been having pretty actively. 1, 2, and 3 right now for us in Europe. This is something we discussed last week. Feel pretty decided. Fnatic feels like number 1, G2 number 2, H2K number 3. Number 4 was Unicorns of Love on the Sheepy Deficio tier list. Maybe is now locked after today. But for you guys, a fellow top 6 team, where do you see Misfits in all this? Who is the 4th best team in Europe right now?
You can answer that.
Honestly, I think we are too inconsistent right now to have a really specific place in the standings. I feel like if we play without fear, if we play smart macro, if we respect everyone's calls and work as a team, we could be a top team, but it's not really showing in every single one of our games. It does, there's glimmers of hope every now and again with some really nice clean games that we do, but then it just crumbles. I don't think we've ever had a series where we just played super clean. So we just need to work on that, and going into playoffs, we could do pretty good.
How do you work on that? We're now in week 9. So I assume that's probably been the plan to work on that from the get-go when you joined the team, as a coach. What is the next step here?
I mean, initially it wasn't. So the first step with Nubar join was to getting him on the same page with everyone else, because we had a very different system with Kakao in everything from gameplay to communication. So I do think overall we've become a much smarter team. I don't think we've been surprised by any teams in terms of macro. And for the most part, at least in comms, we expect it. It's just our answers to what we see happening isn't necessarily on point yet. Sometimes it's great and sometimes it's inconsistent. So in terms of fixing it, I think there's 2 things you can do. You can either decide to pick a specific playstyle that really works for you and go all in on it and just be better at that than everyone else. and that's one way to reach consistency. And I think in a region like Europe, that's possible. And then the other one is, I think us as Misfits, we're very, very close to being a top team. Like I think what makes us inconsistent isn't something that that's necessarily a difficult issue to overcome. It's more about time, practice, and confidence. And we've got 2 weeks till playoffs to fix that. So as to how we fix it, I just have to make sure that my players are confident in themselves and they believe in themselves, because I truly believe that in terms of macro play, we're not that far behind, if at all.
All right. Well, today, Unicorns of Love taking down Splice. Earlier, when I asked you guys on the desk, you said we'd rather face Unicorns of Love in the playoffs. Is that still the case after seeing this macro game today? Assuming H2K is going to be the top team, which of those two teams would you rather face up against in a quarterfinal?
For me, it's not. It doesn't really matter too much, because regardless, we have to beat them to go to Paris. But I don't think this series necessarily shows that Unicorns is that much better than Splice. You can't expect a game 2 like that from any team in Europe, really. Like everyone has some level of inconsistency right now. So I personally think that might have been an outlier. With that said, like I think Unicorns is really good right now, and they've been getting better. But for me, it doesn't really matter who we face.
All right. We talked about it. You said you'd rather jungle against Cersei, but we saw a Kane and a Nidalee today, Maxlore. Is that still the case? Do you still feel like Cersei is the preferred opponent to go up? You did say that he felt like he was more of a predictable jungler. He pulled out two very unpredictable picks, I would say, today. Do you think it's still a matchup that you would be confident going into if you had to play, let's say, next week?
Yeah.
All right. Damn.
Confident. There you go. You get your confidence from Maxlore.
I get confidence from all my players.
All right. Well, one of the other big things that's been kind of discussed in the community this week is format. And specifically today, I want to bring up the conversation about best of 3, best of 2, best of 1, looking at format and talking to you guys as players and coaches, how different formats affect you guys, how it affects your prep, how it affects your week-to-week schedule. And looking right now at best of 3, let's just talk a little bit about what your preparation is like. You're playing 1 or 2 series a week. Is this kind of an ideal schedule for you guys right now?
I think in terms of burnout, it's good, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best in terms of practice. So what I like about it is that if we play 1 game a week and you have a day off, that means you've got like 5 days of scrims. And depending on the type of team you are, you either practice on, or rather you either learn faster on stage or you learn faster in scrims. And if you're a team that learns faster in scrims, which I think we are, then 5 days of scrims is much more beneficial than something like, say, 2 games a week and 2 best of 5s or best of 3s a week. So personally, I like the amount of games there are right now in regular season. And also, as far as best of 3 is concerned, I really like results coming out of a game. I think it's much more fun to play best of 3s because you see more of an adaptation and you see who can really figure out the enemy team and pull out a win from there. So as a coach, it's much more fun and it's much more rewarding to play best of 3s. But with that said, maybe best of 2 is more fair with how League works.
With like you have 1 blue side, 1
Right.
red side, each patch, no matter what.
Right, and so I think you get to see like proper results on each side for every team, regardless of patch and game.
But maybe not the best at gauging adaptability in series, which is something that kind of reflects to a certain degree our playoff environment, with best of 5s being the focus. Maxwell, we were having an interesting discussion on the desk earlier about more opportunities potentially to practice in the regular season, extending the regular season, having more opportunities just to play in general, best of 3, best of 2 regardless. Is this something that you're a fan of?
Yeah, so I still prefer the best of 3, or like even if you can make it a best of 5, it would be good too, just because, I mean, because no matter what, like the more games you play, the more you'll know like which team is better, right? It's like there's a higher chance of the better team to win a best of 5 than there is for a best of 3, if you know what I mean, right? Because
Sure.
they can still cheese the game or something like this. So I prefer best out of 3 compared to best of 1 or best of 2. I would also like to play some of the teams in Group B more, just because you end up playing them in playoffs anyway. And I love playing on stage just because stage practice, even though, like you said, we do learn a lot from scrims, sometimes translating that could be difficult depending on the team. And like some people have fears on stage, like if they mess up, damn, this sucks. And also the enemy team just plays completely different on stage compared to scrim. So I would like to get used to that more and practice on stage environment more.
I mean, that's kind of another argument we see a lot from a lot of fans is regarding this like practice on stage, which I always found super interesting because obviously in traditional sports and so on, like it's all about the practice you get off the big stage. When you're not playing the actual match against the other team, it's what you do like the days leading up to it, as you were highlighting, like 5 days of scrims. Technically, in a perfect world, that should be good enough adaptation as a coach and, you know, preparing for a best-of series. Yet, stage is still so different for a lot of teams that it makes it hard to say that the stage practice doesn't actually matter. And from listening to you guys, clearly it does matter still for a lot of teams, even if it technically shouldn't, because you should have serious enough scrims for that to actually be good enough adaptation, but it probably never will be.
And we've talked a lot on PGL about scrim culture before, so I don't really want to go back there, but I'm curious as just to what is the biggest difference for you, do you feel like? Is it just the fact that teams play differently on stage, or is it more for you as an individual, not looking at your opponent, finding that confidence on stage and finding how to execute better as a team?
Well, it's a bit of both. There's the whole idea of, you know, like this champ would never work on stage and stuff like this. And
because teams are more passive? Or?
Yeah, teams are generally like more passive. Like at least in scrims, like holy moly, you're not gonna win the game, you know. But I just lost the Elise game right now, bro. So it kind of proves the point. So there is the issue of people respecting more in on stage when there's actually something on the line, and also the fact that we, in my opinion, are still not performing at like the level that we should. We don't. Not all of us have confidence on stage on specific days. Sometimes, like most of the time, I'm pretty confident, I would say. Sometimes maybe I'm not, and that will be more like that'll show more on stage because I know there's more on the line, right? So I think, yeah, I forgot the question, but yeah, stage is good.
Stage is good.
That's
got it. Stage is good. Hussein, I want to ask you a little bit. There's a lot of different formats out there in esports. Is there anything that you would like to see in competitive League of Legends that we're not currently seeing in terms of format or structure?
On my end, I think it's the same reasoning for best of 2 versus best of 3 versus best of 2, but it's a lot more fun, or rather, it helps your competitive drive a lot if you have a clear victory at the end of it. And I feel like regular season, while it helps create a lot of rivalries, it's always a lot more fun playing in playoffs. So personally, I would like regular season to be shorter and have like double elimination in playoffs, for example, because you keep the same amount of best of 5s. But there's more like it's just a lot fun from a competitor point of view to play in a situation like that. And as to like, you know, stage practice versus scrim, I completely agree that stage practice is really important because especially like every team will have someone, or you know, the team as a whole that struggles to transfer from scrims into stage. But I feel like it also, there's like a fun factor to it where like you see what player shows up on stage in a more stressful environment that I think playoffs provides.
Is there a way to improve that part, like outside of stage, or is it all literally just the guy gets enough games under his belt, wins games, does well, that's how you get the confidence? Or is there something you guys can do like off the stage to help these guys adapt? Because you see like Fnatic with a bunch of rookies coming in, and it never really felt like Broxa or Caps needed that much time to adjust to get confidence on stage.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. I feel like there's a few moments where maybe it wasn't 100% right, where Caps is maybe treating it a little too much like solo queue, or Broxa's limited in
confidence at least that he's
maybe the wrong kind of confidence.
So I just wonder if there is a way to actually help players in that sense, or is it more just on the specific player on his own, get in there, do well, and then it's gonna naturally just happen?
I think it depends on. I think it really depends on the individual. Some people just adapt better to stage than others, but as far as like tools for helping, you can do simulations for LCS, which will never be the same as LCS, but you can, you know, try to change training so that there are certain times where, you know, you pressure a player in certain ways. You can have sports psychologists to help them prepare mentally for a game. You can discuss, you know, what a game means, and also just beforehand, you can always talk to a player and figure out, you know, what's really worrying him and if we can work around it.
So it seems like a lot of the biggest things with format is just at the end of the day stage experience and experiencing these tense situations. Is that fair? Is that like the biggest thing to consider? Because when we look at a format, right, I think there's complaints about a lot of formats in a lot of different ways, but Max, or something that you said while we were off air and repeat it now, if you're the best team, it doesn't really matter what the format it is. You need to win games, and if you're the best team, you're going to win those games. Is that just kind of the summary of the formats in general?
So I think the mindset that everyone should have is just to be the best team. So regardless of format, you should always, like, the players should not care, right? If you want to be the best, if you're in this industry, in my opinion, then you got to give it your all and be the best team and, you know, just stomp everyone. So format wouldn't matter in that regard. However, in my opinion, if you play, like, if you can play more games, it shows more growth as well as a team. Because say if you only play 9 games in a split compared to like 15, let's say, right? Those 9 games, if you lose in the first few weeks, and even if you start improving and make a comeback, it's going to really, like, you're not going to maybe make playoffs, you know? But if there's 15 games, then you can grow more. You can actually make playoffs. You have time to do this and that. Like, I was with Rocket last split, and at the end, we just, like, if we had more games, then maybe we would have made playoffs. But if we had less games, then we might have been relegations, you know? So it's really just, in my opinion, the amount of games is just growth of a team, and caring about the format should not really matter unless if you're planning to be a loser.
All right. Well, I hope that no one is planning that. Well, thank you guys so much for your insight. With playoffs just a few weeks away, we'll see how the landscape changes when we go to best of 5s, and the pressure is on. All right, well, Week 10 promises some action-filled series. Clash of Kings is the first thing that appears in front of me. Fnatic versus G2, second series on Saturday. Gentlemen, this series, sadly, may not mean anything for the standings.
Oh, it's so painful.
But I'm so hyped for it anyway. I'm curious who you think is going to come out on top in this one.
I think H2K. I think they've been looking really good lately, and
I love it. I love the jump down to H2K.
I said Fnatic G2, but H2K unicorns. No,
Group B
no.
Kings.
Fnatic
Wait, Hussein, go. No, H2K UOL. You're in charge here, man. You're the guest. We'll go where you want to go.
I'll speak for both. H2K UOL. I think H2K. I'm on the H2K hype train.
Yes.
They're like the KT of EU, whatever, but
KT always disappoints in the end.
That's
right,
what we all believe.
I think this is the year. And with Fnatic G2, personally, I think G2 is a lot better, especially recently. I think they've returned to their old form where they play to what's strong in the meta, and they play it very clean. They focus on clean gameplay over, you know, specific strategies that might get them a few wins here and there. So I like how G2 train. I think they've improved a lot. I think they're better than Fnatic now.
Oh, all right, Maxlor, I'm going to go to you, man. Do you H2K UOL? We'll start there, then we'll go to G2 Fnatic. But are you in a? I mean, he is your coach. So do you have to agree with him? What's your opinion here?
But the problem here is if I believe in H2K, maybe they just go downhill starting from now, you know. So
you think you're the one who then starts it all back?
Yeah.
Because we already believe.
And if they go too far downhill, you have to play them in playoffs. And then you're playing KT in playoffs.
No, I just have to believe in unicorns now. And if we play against H2K in playoffs, I'll believe in them so we can win, you know.
Smart.
Yeah, right. So I think unicorns will win. And about Fnatic G2, individually, I'd say overall G2 are better. And their macro is looking pretty solid after, you know, experiencing it on stage firsthand. Just got smacked. So I would have to vote for G2 right there. Fnatic's games with Rocket were close when they really shouldn't have been. So, and that was mainly because of individual mistakes. I don't think G2 will make those mistakes, so G2 should take it.
All right. Fischio, rounding us out.
I mean,
H2K. I know you're going to vote for H2K, so we don't even have to go to that one.
Okay.
Okay.
I vote
I mean, am I right? Yep.
Yeah,
okay. All right. Fnatic G2.
Man, not as confident as you guys in G2 just taking this series. I think it's actually going to be super close because I think Fnatic, and they've talked about this before, when they play teams like Rocket, there's definitely a bit of disrespect coming into the game. Not the same kind of preparation as maybe they have against the other top teams. So I can never see Fnatic show up way more. The problem is, if the game doesn't matter for Fnatic, because they're already beaten NIP and they're locked in first place, then I'm expecting Caps to play Yasuo or some whatever random pick, and then suddenly you can't predict the winner. I guess then G2 takes it because Fnatic might just have a lot of fun.
Okay, fine. All right. That's the most I'm going to get out of you. All right. It's going to be super close.
It will be close. Come on. It's not like Misfits versus Rocket where it's 2-0 Rocket, obviously.
Oh, wow.
What?
Just flame Fischio.
Yeah,
all right. Well, while the teams in the EU LCS are preparing for the final week, it's full action in the EU CF playoffs. Stress is here to break it down for us. Let's look at that camera. Stress, please take this. Go.
There's so much in Week 10 still to come, but Dracos, you're right. Tomorrow is the second Challenger playoff match, and that means we had one last week, and what a blowout it was. Wind and rain was on the forecast, but unfortunately for them, some Giants really stood in the way of the downpour, because 3-0 for Giants last week in a crushing performance. A lot of it to do with the jungle matchup, Gilius looking incredibly strong, and we pretty much had the birth of a new AD carry here in EU Challenger, looking incredibly strong for Giants. Mini Trupax putting a lot of weight on his shoulders up against Challenger mainstay Woolite. And this 3-0 was quick. If you blinked, you missed it. Just about 2 hours of game time maximum between these two teams. And honestly, Giants look unstoppable, exactly how they looked in the regular split. But that means we have a second Challenger playoff match to come. Interestingly enough, Schalke 04 in this matchup against Team RB. Two very hyped teams coming into Challenger Series. Of course, it was this time last split that Schalke 04 dropped their series to Misfits Academy and didn't look so great. They've brought in Memento now as the jungler, Upset still the AD carry, and they've been looking in top form as well. The only team to beat Giants in the regular split. But Team RB, a team focused around Kasing out of the support. Tal and Mujin, the Korean imports for RB, have been looking very strong, and they always mix in things like a Heimerdinger in the mid lane for Magi Felix, so you never quite know what you're going to get with Team RB. I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup. It starts tomorrow at 1700 CEST. Medic and I will be bringing you all of the action here on EU LCS 1. Back to PGL.
Thank you very much, Stress. Gentlemen, quick thoughts on Challenger. You guys did, of course, play against NIP, who are locked in relegation today, and they beat you once. So I feel like you have to say that they're looking like that they're looking like the favorites. Just curious how you think NIP are going to stack up against some of these Challenger teams.
I think NIP's been looking better later on, and NIP's always had a pretty good early game, which I think against Challenger teams matters a lot more than LCS teams. So I don't want to say it'll be easy for them, but I do think NIP is probably the favorite.
Same for the Monkeys as well?
Same for the Monkeys.
All right, two favorites coming in. Looks like two teams that may be able to keep their spots. We'll find out. Over in the NALCS, however, the summer split is almost over, and with just 2 days left of competition, right now Phoenix 1 are facing off against TSM, while Envy are going up against Cloud9, so be sure to tune in for that. Here in Europe, though, it's time to call it a night. Thank you so much for joining me, gentlemen. Thanks to everyone on the broadcast team as well, and of course to all you viewers. We'll be back for the explosive ending of the EU LCS summer split next Thursday, and until then, have a wonderful night.
Ninjas in Pajamas taking on Misfits Gaming as we're on Saturday here in Week 9. Gets a lot of damage down from the Piltover. We quickly jump to middle and Nagne's the target. Oh, manages to miss the Void Rush. Gonna get flashed forward to the Furious Bite. It is a pretty scary combination. Equalizer into everything else. Maxwell is going to chunk down Nagne. Here comes Shook, picked up by Ninjas in Pajamas. That's a fantastic equalizer. Game victory of the split, and they've taken down the Nexus turret. Shook cannot flash over the wall. Is this a second kill to Hunt Summer? It feels like it will be. The minions will secure the last hit.
It's okay, Kane's jungle is good.
Maxwell's looking for Hiku. This is for the 17-minute ace. Ignar sends it home. Focus down. The Ninjas in Pajamas simply don't have anything to stop Misfits. Misfits Gaming will shut down Ninjas and qualify for the quarterfinals.
I think I can imagine how it's all going to go down, but will the Unicorns be able to dive the back line of Splice?
Try to get up. I'm on the blank, I'm dead. Try to get out, just get out. Okay.
Can he get the steal off? No, he's not. The binding is there. He's got flash. He's going to stealing it away. Might give his life for that one. They have made one big statement here in game number 1 as they pile on the Nexus. I can't wait to see what happens. Can Splice slither away of Splice? They go forward. The bullet is not going to land, and Samix dodges out a lot of the damage. Pulls in the feathers once again. Exile dealing with Senklix on the backside. It's Chachi who draws first blood in this fight, taking down the support. Kabi is going to fall right after. 3 Splice members stamped out by the Unicorns of Love, and it's going to be cleanup here as Xerxes is hunting the hopes and dreams of Splice, trying to get that #1 playoff seed. Those are starting to fall down the drain, and the Unicorns will show us a masterclass in the early game, trampling Splice and shutting out this series.